Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. This is the small, dark red arc in Honga's hand gave Yoon-chae a strangely familiar feeling. I don't know either, I just suddenly have it. Master, do you want to play with it? Honga offered the tiny profound arc to Yoon-chae. The words master came out exceptionally smooth. Yoon-chae had no idea how Jasmine had managed to educate Honga in this manner. You can't recognize it? This is the primordial profound arc that you were trapped in for 2 years. Jasmine said. What? Yoon-chae's brows furrowed together, but on the very day we entered the primordial profound arc, I told you that the interior of the arc had formed its own world, and that this internal world was much bigger than the arc's outer appearance. However, the reality of the situation was much more exaggerated than I had originally determined. This profound arc's interior does indeed have an internal world, but it can also change size at will. And no matter how the exterior changes, the interior world is not affected in the least. Jasmine stared at the profound arc in Honga's hand with a serious expression. There was a rumor circulating about in the profound sky continent concerning the primordial profound arc. Every time the Divine Phoenix Empire discovered the profound primordial arc, it was followed by the signal of the appearance of an extremely high-class treasure. And this treasure is not within the profound arc, but should actually be the primordial profound arc itself. The primordial profound arc itself is a rare and unparalleled dimensional treasure. Things with its own internal worlds, I have seen many of those, but an item which can have such a huge internal world while being able to shrink down to such an extent, even I have never seen such a thing. This is indeed worthy to be called a primordial artifact. And only a true god with the strongest ability to control dimensional power would be able to create such a profound arc. You mean, this thing? It's really that primordial profound arc? But didn't it disappear? Yoon-chae asked in disbelief. That primordial profound arc, with an interior so vast that the profound sky continent spent countless years exploring, but could not finish doing so, was actually the little arc in Honga's hand? Even though it was Jasmine who had personally said it, he still had difficulty accepting this fact. And when he had escaped the primordial profound arc, he personally witnessed it disappear into thin air. After you have taken a hold of it yourself, you will naturally find out. Jasmine said these mysterious words. Yoon-chae complied with Jasmine's words and took the little arc from Honga's hands. The moment his fingers touched the little arc, a ball of weak white light suddenly flashed forth. Yoon-chae's movements froze in place, and pieces of soul fragments entered his heart, suddenly filling his head with some strange memories while establishing some form of spiritual link with the tiny profound arc. Observing Yoon-chae's situation, Jasmine said in a timely manner, "Do you remember the lingering spirit at the time we discovered Honga? She didn't completely disappear at that time, she imparted the last vestiges of her spirit to Honga. It was only once you left the profound primordial arc that she truly disappeared. And this primordial profound arc was left to you, consider it your repayment for rescuing Honga." She handed over the primary control over the profound arc to Honga while the secondary controls were passed to you. Those were the soul fragments that you received just now. However, following the dissipation of the spirit, this profound arc has completely exhausted its energy. Not only is it unable to move, it is also unable to support its internal world, and it has been sealed completely. The kind of energy it requires to move is the same as that of a normal profound arc, Yoon-chae muttered in a low voice. The soul fragments had established a clean spiritual link between him and the primordial profound arc, and accompanying this link came memories which clearly instructed him on the primordial profound arc's power source and some basic controls. It did not, however, tell him anything about the origin of the arc. Its power source was basically the same as a normal profound arc, and it could fly in the air just like a normal profound arc. At the same time, it also possessed the ability to traverse dimensions, which normal profound arcs definitely could not do. And if one wanted to use its ability to transverse dimensions, the amount of energy required would be incomparably large. Even if you gathered up all the energy crystals within the profound sky continent, it would only be enough to power it for several jumps. The primary control of this profound arc laid in Honga's hands. At the same time, it had established an extremely strange connection with her, because the method to power up the ark was actually by feeding Honga. Yunche did not even know how to describe Honga's existence, which was bizarre to the point of being heaven-breaking. The interior of the profound ark was boundless, but once he held it in his hand, he could not feel any heaviness whatsoever. Yunche gripped the profound ark tightly and said in a low voice, "This means that if I can give it enough energy to move, I can use it to traverse the dimensions, and return to the profound sky continent." "HMPH, you are too naive," Jasmine said, bluntly pouring cold water over his idea. "Let's not even mention the obscene amount of energy required to traverse dimensions, even if you could use that ability. Do you know where the profound sky continent is located? Do you know how far it is from this world?" Yunche. "Even though you have obtained this primordial profound ark, at the moment, it is not something you can take into consideration. First, you must understand the world that you have landed in right now." "Right?" Yunche crisply nodded his head. This was his second day in this world and he had been slowly understanding the living creatures that made up this world on his journey, but he had yet to inquire about where he was in this world, or even what this world was called in the first place. After all, if he asked this question, there would be the risk that people would suspect he was not right in the head. Yunche's consciousness left the sky poison pearl. He soared into the sky and continued towards the west. Yunche was about 400 kilometers away from Jasmine's indicated target location. Yunche's speed was not fast at all. In a day, he could roughly travel 100 to 150 kilometers. And every time he reached a town, he would stop there for half a day, then would quietly observe the communication of the people around him to glean more information about this world. He could distinctly feel that as he ventured westward, the people, demons, and beasts he met grew stronger and stronger in profound strength. On the third day, in a relatively small town, he merely walked down a street that was not longer than 1.5 kilometers, and he had already felt the presence of 20 or more thrones in the vicinity. On the afternoon of the third day, he finally reached the area that Jasmine had indicated. Yunche flew more than 300 meters into the air, and faced the west. He saw an exceptionally large grey-white city. This city was still at least 50 kilometers away, but it was huge to the point that he could not see the other side of the city. The whole city was covered in a stagnant grey-white color, and even the sky above the city seemed to have an additional mantle of gloominess. "What a big city! It's at least 3 times bigger than Divine Phoenix City," Yunche said. "The demonic energy is exceptionally thick," Jasmine said in a low voice. "From its scale and the power levels present, this city should be the center of this entire world. The population seems roughly half human and half demon. Your real trials in this world should begin from this city. HMPH, you better be careful. Do not die too quickly." Yunche slowed down his speed as he drew nearer to the grey-white city. At this time, the sounds of a fiercely violent fight emerged from the area to the front of Yunche, and as he grew nearer to that spot, bursts of profound energy storms flew from a very far distance to heavily impact his surroundings. Yunche's brows jumped violently. Amongst the people who were fighting in front of him, every single one of them emitted an exceedingly strong aura. In terms of profound strength and levels, they were far above him. 2 half a step into the tyrant profound realm, 3 others at the first level of the tyrant profound realm, Jasmine said dully. Yunche halted his movements and hesitated for a moment. But he chose to continue flying forward and he quickly reached the scene of the battle. He had arrived at a forest which was not too thickly enshrouded. In the aftermath of the fierce battle, several hundred meters of the area had already been leveled into a flat surface. Not even a blade of grass could be seen, much less trees. In the center of the area, 3 people were clothed in black and they wore pitch-black hoods. They were wrapped up in cloth from head to toe, only showing their hands and eyes. And the 3 people were surrounding a couple. The couple looked extremely young, approximately 20 years of age. The couple stood back to back. The man had a physique that was similar to Yunche. His face was uncommonly handsome and elegant. He was dressed in all white, holding a long sword completely stained in blood, with a trickle of blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. Even though his wounds were not light, his eyes emitted a ferocious and unyielding light. The girl was dressed in a light green, tight-fitting bodysuit. Her face was delicate and pretty while also having an heroic aura which would not lose to men. But what surprised Yunche was that there were two especially long pointed ears on the side of her head, and on her back stretched a pair of semi-transparent, butterfly-shaped, diaphanous wings. They were very beautiful. Her weapon was also very special. It was actually an oddly shaped emerald bow broader than her entire body. On the strings of her tautly drawn bow were 3 streaks profound energy sword rays. But the power of the profound energy rays seemed to have grown weak. Ah, the elven race actually exists on this world? Jasmine said in surprise. Because on their way here, they had seen many different humans and demons, but they had yet to come across fairies. Elf? That girl is one of those legendary fae. Yunche's gaze fell on the girl. He had heard many legends of the elven race, but this was the first time he had seen real-life elf. The special features of the elven race are immediately obvious. You do not need probe their aura, you can tell it with a glance. Elves may be far outnumbered by humankind, but their average potential far outstrips that of humanity. Not only do they find it easier to absorb elemental profound energy, but they are natural-born marksmen. A bow is the weapon most suited to them. Who are you people? The young man shouted as he gnashed his teeth. You despicable, shady villains. I have already sent a sound transmission to Big Brother. He will arrive very soon. And at that time, you will all die a dog's death. The elf girl furiously shouted. The couple was very young, but they were already half-step overlords, and it was hard to find equals at their age. But the 3 people surrounding them were genuine overlords. Even though half-step overlords were only just half a tier lower than true overlords, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. A practitioner at the first level of the Tyrant Profound Realm could easily beat both of them. Even if they combined forces, he could even beat 3 of such opponents. When they heard the elf girl mention the 2 words, Big Brother, the pupils of the 3 men in black contracted slightly. They were obviously extremely afraid of this Big Brother. But immediately after, the leader of the black-clad trio laughed sinisterly. But it's too bad that even if he arrives, he will not be able to see you alive one last time. However, young man, you can relax. We only want this girl's life. We won't kill you. At most, we will let you suffer a bit. Do thank us, your lords, for sparing your life. Ha 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 ha. If you want to kill my 7th sister, you'll need to step over my dead corpse first. The young man did not display the slightest joy and instead roared harshly. But just as those words fell, he spat out a huge amount of blood. Under the combined attacks of 3 overlords, he had long ago sustained serious internal injuries. At this time, Yunche had been sensed by their spiritual perception. As they suddenly noticed someone drawing near, the faces of the trio in black went cold, while the young man and the elf girl were overjoyed. However, once they had perceived that the person who was approaching was only in the sky profound realm, the black-clothed men laughed in disdain, and completely let down their guards. The couple's newly arisen hope was also swiftly and brutally snuffed out. Yunche descended until he flew just above their heads. The 3 men in black paid him no attention at all. As overlords, why would they even bother to consider a lowly sky profound realm practitioner? Yunche looked down mutely as he swiftly flew past without stopping. At this moment Jasmine said, "Aren't you going to meddle in their affairs?" "Forget it." Yunche shook his head. "The 2 people who have been surrounded are around my age, but they are already half-step overlords. They cannot be of ordinary birth. And the forces that oppose them has the ability to dispatch 3 overlords to deal with them. That kind of power is not to be trifled with. I have just reached this place, and I haven't even figured out the most basic situation yet. It would be better if I do not meddle." The young couple was surrounded by 3 overlords and were heavily injured. They had reached an absolute, inescapable dead end. The leader of the black-clad trio gave a cold laugh as he stretched out his hand, all 5 fingers making a grabbing motion towards the elf girl. "Heh? Die? I will definitely not let you harm my 7th sister." The young man's face turned scarlet, his arms swelling with all the power he could muster within himself. He let out a terrible shout, and he stood in front of the elf girl, both arms reaching out towards the black-clothed man. Stop overestimating yourself. The black-clothed man coldly laughed, and it was at this moment that the young man's body suddenly turned, as he used his back to receive the black-clothed man's attack. The arms which were supposed to receive the attack had instead fallen heavily on the elf girl's body. At this moment, all those who were present were taken by complete surprise. Even the Yunche who had flown away was distracted. Under the strike of this unexpected blow, the elf girl's body flew extremely far away, escaping the encirclement of the black-clad trio. Seventh sister, hurry up and run. As he used all his remaining energy to yell those words, his back had already received the black-clothed man's attack. His entire body flew out, and a bloody hole the size of a fist appeared on his back. This young punk is looking for death. The black-clothed man hastily withdrew his attack, but the remaining energy was already enough to take this young man's life. Their mission was to kill the elf girl. If they accidentally killed the boy as well, the result would be greatly lessened. Damn it! Do you think this is enough to save her life? Such foolish knavery. The other two black-clothed men flew out at the same time, bearing down on the elf girl who had flown more than 30 meters away like a pair of great birds. But they did not even need to give chase, as the elf girl came running back. She had thrown away her weapon as she looked at the young man who had fallen on the ground covered in blood. Her eyes filled with tears, and she said in heartbreaking voice, "Brother Yun. Brother Yun. I won't run away. If you have to die, then we can die together." Seventh sister, the boy lying on the ground had difficulty raising his head as he uttered those words in a weak voice. Yunche's body froze, and like a bolt of lightning, he rushed all the way back. Damn it. This kind of scene is something I can't tolerate seeing. And moreover, that kid is also named Yun. We might have even been relatives many eons ago. I'm going to save him. Yunche suddenly moved back, straight into the air above the five. He pushed out both his hands, and 3 phoenix breaks flew towards the black-clad trio. This young punk is looking for death. When Yunche had passed by before, they paid him absolutely no mind. For an overlord to squash a sky profound was as simple as squashing an ant. They did not expect that the sky profound punk would actually come back and extend his hands towards them. A look of extreme disdain flitted across the eyes of the black-clad trio, and they turned a blind eye to the 3 blasts of flame, not even making a single movement to block. The fire of a practitioner at the sky profound realm could not even harm a single hair on their heads. But all of a sudden, the scarlet flame which was tens of meters away was bearing down on their bodies, its speed far surpassing their expectations. As the flames neared, they could feel a horrifying heat, as well as an extremely dangerous aura that caused their hearts to suddenly tighten. The black-clad trio stopped their attack on the elf girl as they turned around with the swiftest of speeds, extending their hands to receive the onrushing flames. But once their palms came into contact with the flames, their bodies shuddered, as their internal organs were thrown into disarray. They could not afford to remain shocked. They thrust their hands outwards, and used all their strength to resist the blow. 3 explosions resounded in the air, and the flames flew apart. But at the same time, the black-clad trio had been forced to retreat many steps, as their arms were numb and their bodies shivered. The weakest of the trio had both his palms charred black. "Who are you?" the black-clothed man said harshly. Even though he sounded harsh, his eyes were filled with a deep fear, and what he shouted merely sounded fierce. He could only feel the aura of the sky profound realm from Yunche's body, but his burnt hands and the numbness in his arms were not a lie. Moreover, this person had fired an attack at 3 of them at the same time. Yunche stepped through the air as he leisurely walked over, looking down on his audience. He coldly laughed. 3 stately overlords would actually band together to bully 2 juniors, and they would even hide their appearances while doing so. Surely, you have brought honor to your ancestors. Friend, please, you must leave. The young man who laid on the ground, with his aura being exceptionally weak, raised his head and used his loudest voice to yell, "Thank you for extending your hand towards us in help, but this matter does not concern you. Please, you must leave now." Even though he saw the 3 columns of flames, the ones who endured the fire was the black-clad trio, he was naturally unaware of the embarrassment the 3 men had suffered under those 3 columns of flames. In his eyes, a single sky profound realm had offended 3 overlords. that was no different from courting death. He and the elf girl were destined for death today, and there was no need to implicate an innocent. Yunche gave him a single look, but did not respond. This person, who was also named Yun, obviously had an extremely good personality. Even though he was on the brink of death, he was still thinking about others. This had at least made it worthwhile for him to be a busybody and save them. Hey, punk, I would advise you to stick your nose out of this. Meddlesome people often have short lives. The black-clothed man on the left said in a deep voice. HMPH, young people are often hot-blooded and impetuous and like to meddle where they don't belong. That is understandable. But there are many affairs in this world that you do not have the capability to meddle in. The black-clothed man in the middle said with the same deep and low voice. Their voices all sounded hoarse, and it was obvious they were using faking a voice so as to not allow people to recognize their original voice. If you leave now, we will treat what had just happened as nothing, and maybe we can even be friends. However, if you do not appreciate HMPH, if you spoil our plans one more time, then you can't blame us for the consequences. Once the black-clothed man had said his piece, the young man lying on the ground became dumbstruck. Because even though the man sounded harsh, they were three overlords against a mere sky profound who had impeded their actions, yet here they were, trying to use words to intimidate the other party rather than just exterminating him outright. And even though their voices were harsh, the words used were not fierce in the least. Even the phrase, "if you do not appreciate our kindness," was not fully voiced out. It was as if they actually feared this young man. The black-clad trio were genuine overlords. To be able to reach this level, you could not be a fool. Even though the aura Yunche exuded was that of a sky-profound practitioner, the previous fire attack had filled their hearts with shock. And despite them announcing their status as overlords, he still dared to attack them. It was simply too unusual. Heh, but it's too bad that I'm feeling good today. So in regards to this affair, I am definitely going to be a meddler. Yunche crossed his arms over his chest as he let out a short bark of laughter, but I have always been a compassionate and kind man. Regarding the act of killing, I have always been unwilling, so either the three of you leave now, or I will send you down to meet the king of hell. Yunche's words were arrogant to the extreme. Since he had already made his move and decided to save these two, he was fated to offend these three men and the hidden power behind them. Since this was unchangeable, he might as well be as offend them even more. The gazes of the three men in black sank, and the one in the middle strode forward, speaking in an overcast voice. Looks like even though we show you respect, you still act so brazenly. Even though we try to let you off the hook, you deliberately want to court death. If that's the case, then this daddy will kill you as well. As his voice fell, the black-clothed man rushed into the sky. At the same time, a pitch-black iron spear 8 feet long appeared in his hands. This spear was only an earth-profound weapon. As an overlord, his personal weapon naturally would not be a mere earth-profound weapon. It was obvious that the black-clothed man did not want to reveal any trace of his identity, including weapons. That the black-clothed man would immediately use his weapon showed the fear he had towards Yunche. His black spear thrust forward, and with a low shout, it was accompanied by a violent blast of energy which swept towards Yunche's neck. "Watch out!" The young man lying in a pool of his own blood saw the black-clothed man make his move, and he yelled out in shock. Facing the black-clothed man's attack, Yunche's face revealed a weird expression. It seemed to be an expression of surprise or confusion, as he steadily stretched out his hands, and tried to grab the body of the spear which was streaking towards him. Courting death. The black-clothed man saw that Yunche was not trying to dodge, and did not summon a weapon. It was not even in the correct posture to block the blow. Instead, he was trying to use his bare hands to receive his weapon. And Yunche's movement seemed exceptionally lackadaisical. He laughed coldly in his heart, and the profound energy within his arm surged once more, as if he couldn't wait to destroy this arrogant youth in a single strike. In the next instant, Yunche's extended palm caught the spear with unerring accuracy. Suddenly, the incomparably fierce profound energy wave seemed to meet a boundless mountain wall, and immediately disappeared into nothingness. All that was left was a weak ripple of energy that ruffled Yunche's hair. Without waiting for the black-clothed man to show an expression of surprise, Yunche's palm lightly flipped, and with a light delicate touch, he stole the spear from the man. Once again, his palm flipped, and with a swing of his arm, the spear fiercely thrust towards the waist of the black-clothed man. Bang! A distorted spatial ripple distinctly appeared on the path the spear traveled. In an instant, the spear had snapped, one half remained in Yunche's hands, the other half shot out like a black meteor, and no one knew how far it flew. At the same time, the other thing that was fractured was the black-clothed man's body. The instant the black spear landed on his body had literally been snapped in half, breaking into two pieces, with both pieces flying and landing in two different locations. Thump! When the two parts of the black-clothed man's body fell, two fountains of fresh blood spouted out from the parts which had been severed. The eyes of the black-clothed man were still wide, and his expression was filled with endless horror, shock and disbelief. His death glare was still affixed to Yunche, his mouth spitting out at you in a voice that was hoarse with shock. After that, he stopped moving. Even if he was an overlord, if his body had been snapped in half, there was no way he could survive. Yunche extending his hand, his defensive strength, his stealing of the spear and his counter-attack. All of this happened in an instant akin to the flash of a spark. The people below saw the black-clothed man sweep his spear towards Yunche, and before anyone could react, they saw the man's body snap in half mid-air. The four below were all stunned into lifelessness, and no one breathed. All four people could not believe what had just transpired before their very eyes. It was just an instant, an instant. The black-clothed man died an ignominious death at the hands of this young man. He used the spear that he had instantly snatched from the opponent, that earth-profound spear, to snap an overlord's body in half. That was a genuine overlord. A peerless strong being whose body was 100 times tougher than stone. Yunche, who was still in the air, looked at the splintered spear in his hand, and he himself was rendered dumbfounded. After enduring the spatial turbulence within the primordial profound arc for 2 whole years, going through a tempering that was fiercer than any purgatory, his body and his profound energy all received an explosive boost. He was convinced that his current strength far exceeded the strength he had before he entered the primordial profound arc, but he did not actually know how strong he had actually grown. Because in the last 2 years, only Jasmine had been by his side, and he had not crossed hands with anyone, so he could not ascertain the level of his current strength. But just now, when he faced 3 overlords, he did not feel any pressure at all. That already surprised him greatly. Facing the attack of an overlord, his expression was relaxed, but in reality his heart was filled with caution. After all, before he had entered the primordial profound arc, an overlord was an unconquerable existence for him. So when he delivered his counter-attack with the spear, he had used 90% of his power. Not to mention, he had not opened any of the evil god's gates. He naturally did not even think that the counter-attack he delivered without even entering the state of burning heart could actually snap the body of an overlord in half. Even though it was only a level 1 overlord. It was still a genuine tyrant, profound individual. So my strength has actually grown by this much. Yunche mused in shock as he stared at his arm. HMPH, what did you think? Jasmine said disdainfully, you thickened your dragon god's bloodline by tens of times and you reached the 4th stage of the Great Way of the Buddha. Do you think all of this is for fun? If you had opened Purgatory's gate, your strength would have risen by 10 times, and your last attack would not have left a single bone on that person's body intact. Yunche. So it turns out that I'm already this powerful. Damn. I thought that the lack of pressure I felt from them was a misconception on my part. Yunche threw away the broken spear in his hand. After which his body blurred and suddenly he had landed on the ground. He looked at the 2 black-clothed men who had been frightened out of their wits, smiled, and said, how about the both of you? How do you want to leave? You. The man on the left retreated several steps, both legs trembling, and when he spoke, his teeth chattered violently, making it hard for him to even complete his sentence. Let's go. The man on the right pulled him along, and using the greatest speed, madly fleeing away from the scene. They passed by the splintered body and one of the black-clothed men stopped to swiftly pick it up. After seeing Yunche not having any intention to stop them from fleeing, he plucked up his courage and scooted over to pick up the other part of the body. After doing so, He fled away from Yunche as though he had gone mad. Not going to silence them? Jasmine asked coldly. If I silence them, then where are my enemies going to come from? If I don't have strong enough enemies, how can this be considered a real trial? Yunche asked matter-of-factly. HMPH. This is totally in line with your death-seeking personality. Jasmine laughed coldly, but she did not attempt to restrain him in the slightest. The young man and the elf girl had initially completely given up, resigning themselves to death, but they never expected that a savior would suddenly descend from heavens. In the blink of an eye, among the 3 black-clothed men, 2 ran away and 1 died. The young man stared at Yunche for a while and he nearly forgot about his injuries in his shock. Only when Yunche neared did he start struggling to stand. Within his pained voice was deep gratitude. Thank you, Senior, for saving us. I thank Senior for saving us. The elf girl followed up with his gratitude and replied thankfully. Eh? Senior? The edge of Yunche's mouth moved, not explaining anything. He moved forward and slowly supported the young man, replying, Don't talk for now, calm down, and stabilize your injuries. I'll help you. Yunche placed his hand above the injury on the young man's back, gradually transferring profound energy over. His profound energy possessed the attributes of the dragon god and the phoenix god, along with highly concentrated pure natural energy. Using it to treat injuries would immensely improve the rate of recovery. The young man did not argue as he stopped speaking and closed his eyes. Just as he intended to start utilizing the remaining profound energy within him, he suddenly felt a warm and majestic, no, it was more accurately a nearly boundless form of profound energy that entered into his body from his back. The strength of the profound energy was obviously only of the sky profound realm, yet it was unbelievably dense. He had also only slowly climbed his way from the sky profound realm. If it was said that his profound energy when he was in the sky profound realm was like smoke, then the current profound energy entering his body was like lava. It was even more intense and concentrated than his, even though he was half-step into the tyrant profound. How could this be the profound energy from the sky profound realm? No. It must be a senior whose profound realm is too high. With my cultivation, I'm unable to detect it at all, thought the young man. As Yunche started to transfer his profound energy, the young man's expression moved again. It was not only because he felt the density of his profound energy, rather, he felt that it actually contained a mysterious power that caused all the veins in his body to bulge up. Even the damaged veins were quickly recovering their vitality. His most severe external injury was on his back, and his internal injuries were not light. However, following the flow of the profound energy, he could clearly feel that both his external and internal injuries were recovering at an unbelievably quick rate. He was fairly certain that even if the oldest great elder in his family used all his abilities, he would not be able to let him recover this quickly. This essentially transcended all common sense. This speed of recovery was unheard of. This senior is no doubt an extremely frightening expert, which caused the young man to be even more certain of his guess, causing him to admire Yunche even more. He gave up on trying to utilize his own profound energy and began to concentrate on absorbing and utilizing the profound energy that was entering his body. With the presence of this boundless form of profound energy, even if he utilized all the remaining profound energy within him, it would not even compare. When he tried to further feel the profound energy, he discovered that its profound laws were very mysterious. More accurately, weird. His half-step overlord self, who had cultivated profound energy for nearly 20 years, wasn't able to comprehend it, and he felt inexplicably surprised. Let me help too. Even though the elf girl was injured as well, her injuries were relatively light compared to the young man. She felt relieved for the man as she withdrew her weapon back into her spatial ring, placing both her hands on the man's chest. Her palm let out a jade-green glow. Instantly, Yunche felt an energy that was like cooling water surge into the man's body, and when Yunche came in contact with this energy, even he felt a sense of rejuvenation. The elven race's profound energy possess innate natural energy. Not only is it beneficial for self-recovery, when treating others, it is far superior than any humans. Solely because of this, the elven race is well liked by other races. Furthermore, because of the nature energy, the males of the elven race are handsome while the females are beautiful. Considering their unique talent, most races desire to find a partner from the elven race. Jasmine casually commented as she glanced at the young man, then coldly continued, "This brat is a pure human, yet is favored by this elf girl. His luck's not that bad." Under the cooperation of Yunche and the elf girl, the young man's severe injuries were stabilized quickly. When Yunche removed his palm, the young man's back looked worrisome, but was actually already fine. The bleeding has already stopped as well, and he would be able to recover within half a month just relying on his own profound energy. The young man stood up with the aid of the elf girl and bowed respectfully to Yunche. "Not only did Senior save me and seventh sister, you personally helped treat my injuries. Junior will definitely keep such a great kindness in mind. I hope Senior can tell me his name." "You called me Senior?" Yunche grinned and asked, "Do I look very old?" The young man was embarrassed by what Yunche had said, and did not know how to answer him for a while. The elf girl eyed him from top to bottom before serious speaking. "You're so strong, so you must be a great senior who reverted to a younger age." "I'm only 22 this year." Yunche laughed, directly announcing his age. "Are you sure you want to call me senior?" "Ah? 22. The two of them looked at Yunche and cried out in shock at the same time. Yunche had casually instantly killed a level 1 overlord, his frightening strength causing them to guess that he was definitely an elderly expert who had trained for a long time. Furthermore, at the Tyrant Profound realm, even a 200-year-old could look like a 20-year-old. For a 20-odd-year-old to instantly kill an overlord was not a realistic idea. Even within the whole continent, there were not more than 5 who were able to do that, and each of them were renowned in the world. Yunche, however, was a fresh face that they had never seen before, and they would never have expected that he was only 22. The young man's face looked awkward as he embarrassingly replied, This benefactor is so strong that we thought you were an expert who purposely kept himself young." As he spoke, his eyes brightened, continuing, "Benefactor is so young, yet so strong, you must be famous. Can I know your name?" "Yunche." Yunche replied without hesitation. In a foreign world, his name would be unknown, and there was no need to hide it. "Yun-che?" The two of them uttered the name at the same time as their eyes looked lost. A mere 22-year-old that was able to instantly kill an overlord would by right be famous within the entire continent. However, this was the first time they heard his name. The young man quickly replied, "Oh, Benefactor's surname is also Yun, what a coincidence." "Oh, that means your surname is Yun as well." Hearing the elf girl call the man previously, Yunche had already known that his surname was Yun as he replied with a smile, "Just call me Yunche. The word benefactor is too awkward." "Right, how do I address you two?" The young man hastily replied, "All right, then I'll call you Big Brother Yun from now on. My surname is Yun and my name is—" Just as he was about to say his name, the elf girl beside him tugged at him, "Brother Yun." The young man shook his head and replied seriously, "Seventh sister, he is our benefactor. If it wasn't for him, we would already have died here. It's just a name, why do we have to hide it from our benefactor? My name is Yun Xiao, 21 years and 10 months old, younger than Big Brother Yun by a few months. This is seventh sister, who is 2 years younger than me. Big Brother Yun can just call me seventh sister." The elf girl nodded gently, her demeanor appearing a little awkward. "My name is a mouthful. I'm afraid Big Brother Yun would laugh and won't say it. Please just call me seventh sister." Yunche nodded. He was only casually asking for their names. However, this Yun Xiao's name and age caused him to be somewhat surprised. Even though he said that he was 22, his actual age was probably 21 and 10 months as well, exactly the same as him. Furthermore, his name was Yun Xiao. Yun was his surname now and Xiao was his surname from when he was 16. This was quite a peculiar coincidence. After Yun Xiao announced his name, Yunche's reaction was unusually calm, causing the two to feel shock. The elf girl could not hold back and asked, "Big Brother Yun, could it be that you've never heard the name Yun Xiao before?" "Oh." Yunche glanced again at Yun Xiao, whose expression was a bit unusual, and instantly understood. He calmly replied, "Is Brother Yun's name renowned in this area?" "It must be, so young and already a half-step overlord. You must be a world-shaking genius whom even the heavens are jealous of." "No, no, with Big Brother Yun here, I don't dare." Yun Xiao waved it off. If it was someone else praising him like that, he would definitely accept it. But comparing to someone who far exceeded him and was similar to him in age, he really could not accept those compliments. He scratched his head and replied, "I do have a slight reputation in Demon Imperial City." "Oh, that's right, Big Brother Yun is not someone from Demon Imperial City." "Demon Imperial City? Could it be that grayish-white city?" Yun Che shook his head. "I come from a faraway place and it's my first time coming to Demon Imperial City." "So that's it." Both of them instantly understood, but the elf girl was still confused. Could Big Brother Yun be from the southern borders? Other than Demon Imperial City, only the southern borders could produce someone as strong as Big Brother Yun. No, if the southern borders produce someone as strong as Big Brother Yun, and I would have already known. The elf girl considered carefully. It was obvious that she was unable to let it go that he was someone who had an unfamiliar appearance and name, yet had strength to instantly kill an overlord at the age of 22. Yun Che laughed and replied, "I come from a place far further than what you imagine and I've never come here before. I've come this time only for training and you guys not knowing my name is normal." Yun Che nodded towards them and continued, "You two are still injured. The ones trying to assassinate you might come back. You should leave soon." As he finished speaking, Yun Che began rising as he prepared to leave. "Big Brother Yun, wait." Yun Xiao hurriedly moved forward and hastily replied, "Big Brother Yun, that direction, are you going to Demon Imperial City?" "That's right." Yun Che nodded. Being named Imperial must mean that it was the capital city of the continent, which meant that the grey-white city giving off a very strong aura must be it. This little brother and seventh sister are citizens of Demon Imperial City. If this is Big Brother Yun's first time, you probably do not have a place to stay. How about coming to my Yun house to stay for a while? I can explain to you the current situation of the city, and when I recover, I can bring you around Demon Imperial City. I wonder if that is fine with Big Brother Yun." Yun Xiao's voice and eyes were exceptionally sincere, and he was even afraid that Yun Che was not fine with it. Yun Che's body stopped in midair as he nodded slightly, smiling, "That's fine, then I'll be under Brother Yun's care." Yun Che knew nothing about the Demon Imperial City in front of him, nor did he know anything about this entire continent. Having someone to guide him was undoubtedly greatly beneficial. Seeing Yun Che's consent, Yun Xiao was all smiles. No, compared to Big Brother Yun saving our lives, this is nothing at all. My elf clan will also welcome Big Brother Yun as a guest at any time. My clan will definitely repay Big Brother Yun for saving Brother Yun and me," the elf girl said sincerely. Suddenly, Jasmine's grim voice rang in Yun Che's head, "An expert is coming here. He's in the 8th level of the Tyrant Profound Realm. If it's an enemy, you better prepare to run." Yun Che frowned as the profound energy within his body surged. However, Jasmine's voice suddenly sounded again, "Looks like there's no need to run, it's an elf." Just as Jasmine finished speaking, a fierce gust swept over from the north, and Yun Che only felt a green figure flash past. A huge man's figure appeared into his vision from out of nowhere. The man was dressed in green and was extraordinarily handsome. His eyes were masculine, his ears 30% larger than the elf girl, and he gave off an overbearing aura. Even his pair of transparent wings vibrated intensely with profound strength. Upon seeing the elf girl, he descended in a flash and landed beside her. "Old Seven, you're injured." "Big Brother, you're finally here." Once she saw the tall man appear, the elf girl was finally relieved. "My injuries aren't serious, but Brother Yun suffered serious injuries." HMPH. Seeing that his sister was all right, the muscular man let out a sigh of relief. Then he grunted coldly, turned around, and glared coldly at Yun Xiao, anger rising within him. "Yun brat. I knew it must be you. Luckily Old Seven is all right this time, otherwise I will personally cripple you." Yun Xiao opened his mouth, but did not rebut. Instead, he looked down in shame. "Big Brother. Don't talk to him like that. The elf girl frantically grabbed his hand. It's not Brother Yoon's fault, and he was only so severely injured in order to save me. It's enough that you don't thank Brother Yoon, but you're actually acting so fierce toward him. Thank? HMPH. The muscular man looked down. Wasn't it him who asked you out this time? I? No, it wasn't. It was me who secretly asked Brother Yoon out. If you want to blame someone, then blame me. The elf girl answered as she puffed her cheeks. It was obvious she was not good at lying, and her wavering eyes and piqué attitude had already betrayed her. It's not Seventh Sister's fault, it's all my fault. Yoon Xiao's head hung downwards with a face of guilt and unease. Since you know it's your fault, you better stay further away from old Seven from now on. The muscular man said coldly, if there's a next time, I will personally cripple your hands and legs. I do what I say. Old Seven is not someone you are worthy of. HMPH. Who knows which bastard child you are? Do you really think you're the young master of the Yoon family? Big brother. The muscular man's words caused the elf girl's face to change drastically as she looked worryingly at Yoon Xiao, and said angrily, how can you say such words to Brother Yoon? If you continue, I'll ignore you from now on. Old Seven, forget it, HMPH. The muscular man was spurred by anger, and now felt he was a little overboard as well. He turned around and stopped talking. Yoon Xiao's face blackened as he bit his lips. Then, he smiled bleakly, shook his head, and said, Seventh Sister, don't blame Big Brother, what he said is true, but, Yoon Xiao looked up and said with resolve, but no matter what, even if you cripple my legs, I will never give up on Seventh Sister. It is undoubtedly my fault that Seventh Sister was nearly assassinated this time. I will definitely train hard, and next time, I won't allow anyone to bully Seventh Sister anymore. Then, you and Uncle will be at ease when you pass Seventh Sister on to me. Brother Yoon, the elf girl looked on tenderly as her eyes filled with tears. The muscular man looked over with disdain, but when he saw the elf girl, he quickly changed to a caring and serious look. About the matters concerning you two, we will discuss them back in the city. Old Seven, what happened here? You sound transmitted over that you were attacked by 3 overlords? Where are they now? The elf girl turned and looked at Yoon Che. Me and Brother Yoon nearly died in their hands. It was this Big Brother Yoon who saved us. If not for Big Brother Yoon, if you came now, you would probably only see our corpses. You should thank him. You? The muscular man turned and looked at Yoon Che with suspicion. He saw Yoon Che when he arrived, but chose to ignore him as he was only in the Sky Profound realm and was a stranger. Yoon Che smiled slightly. I am Yoon Che. The elf girl continued, Big Brother Yoon and Brother Yoon are the same age, but he's amazing. He killed a black-clothed man in one move, scaring the 2 others away. He really only used one move. The 3 black-clothed men were all overlords. Me and Brother Yoon cooperated but couldn't even defeat one. The muscular man's eyes swept across Yoon Che and he gradually frowned. From what he sensed, Yoon Che's profound strength was only at the 10th level of the Sky Profound realm. At this level, he could only be considered a weakling within Demon Imperial City. How could he kill overlords, and furthermore, defeat them instantly? Under his forceful gaze, he realized that Yoon Che, who was in front of him, was unperturbed and completely unaffected by the pressure of his aura. He was slightly shocked in his heart. Then, he stepped forward without uttering a single word, and pushed out a palm at Yoon Che. The casual palm caused a huge and dangerous-looking spiral to appear in the space between him and Yoon Che. Following which, the huge spiral suddenly dispersed into 99 separate small spatial whirlpools, then converged again, and smashed towards Yoon Che. Wind attribute profound energy? This was a blow from a high-level overlord, perhaps the most frightening attack Yoon Che had ever received since birth. However, he did not panic, nor did he retreat or even move. He stretched his hand out and a ball of phoenix flames burned in his hand, going head-on against the savage, oncoming profound energy cyclone. Boom! The savage wind profound energy and the fire profound energy collided against each other without any trickery. Even though it was only a simple test between the two, space was still violently torn apart in that instant, the savage storm tore apart the flames, and the torn-apart flames burned the savage storm. The surrounding 10 meters of air were violently disrupted by the collision of wind and fire. Yunche collided against the muscular man in the midst of the collision between the storm and the flames and was forced back by 3 steps. They looked at each other, their gaze now completely different from before, as their hearts echoed the same words. So strong. Yunche possessed strong arm strength gifted by the dragon god's bloodline and natural strength. Hence, when they collided, he should have had the advantage. Despite that, he did not gain an advantage from that straightforward exchange. This was also not knowing how much strength his opponent had used. The muscular man's shock was even greater than Yunche's. Because the Yunche in front of him was obviously only in the sky profound realm, and from what he had heard from Old Seven, he was probably only in his early 20s. What exactly was this person's background? Why had he never seen him before? Big brother, what are you doing? The elf girl chided. Big brother Yun is our benefactor. Not only did you not thank him, you attacked him. You've gone too far. Ha 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 ha. The muscular man laughed, cupped his fists at Yunche and said sincerely, brother, please do not misunderstand. Even though I am a member of the elven race, I love battles. When I see a strong opponent, I cannot help myself. I am number 1 under heaven. I thank brother Yun for saving Old Seven's life. Your kindness, my clan will definitely repay you. Yunche opened his mouth, but did not speak. He had seen arrogant people before, but he had never seen someone so arrogant that he proclaimed himself to be the number 1 under heaven. Even though he was strong, he couldn't be the number 1 under heaven, right? Even if you are the number 1 under heaven. Would you die if you were a little more humble? Seeing Yunche's expression, the muscular man knew what he was thinking and laughed bitterly. Brother Yun, do not misunderstand, I'm not such a conceited and arrogant person, but my surname is under heaven and my name is number 1. My father named me this way and I too am helpless. Surname under heaven. Name number 1. How great is he at naming? Even though Yunche tried his best to control himself, his brows still twitched intensely twice as he eyed the elf girl. He said with a nod, so that's why. Then, your sister's name is? Oh, my sister is the 7th child in the family, so she's named number 7 under heaven. Don't say it. The elf girl tried to stop her brother, but it was already too late. She could only hold her face in embarrassment. It's all Dad's fault, giving me such a stupid name. Just call me 7th sister. 7th sister. Yunche used an immense amount of determination to stop himself from laughing out loud. It was no wonder 7th sister refused to mention her name just now. The eldest was number 1 under heaven and the 7th eldest was number 7 under heaven. One could guess with their toes what the 2nd eldest to the 6th eldest were respectively called, number 2 under heaven, number 3 under heaven, number 6 under heaven. Who knows whether there were any number 8 under heaven, number 9 under heaven. That also meant that the titles of the top few people in this world belonged to their family. Brother Yun looks very foreign. Could this be your first time coming here? When number 1 under heaven said his name, Yunche's reaction caused him to believe that Yunche was definitely not from Demon Imperial City. Furthermore, at his age, having such a profound strength level was frightening. If he belonged to Demon Imperial City or its surrounding places, he would not be so unfamiliar. That's right. Yunche nodded. In my entire life, I've never actually entered Demon Imperial City before. No wonder. The number 1 under heaven nodded before honestly continuing, Old 7 is my under heaven family's most important treasure. Since you've saved her life, you are a great benefactor of my under heaven clan. If you don't mind, how about coming to our under heaven clan to stay for a while? I also happen to have some free time now and can bring Brother Yun around the city. Yun Xiao and number 7 under heaven revealed faces of shock. They knew fully well of number 1 under heaven's status and position, and since he was young, he had never took the initiative to get to know someone. However, as they thought of Yunche's age and abilities, they could understand why. With such skills at his age, even within the entire Demon Imperial City, he could be considered an elite. Even though the Under Heaven clan's power within the Demon Imperial City was considered massive, making such a friend would only bring benefits. Yunche smiled and replied, I appreciate Brother Under Heaven's intentions, but Brother Yun Xiao and I have the same surname. It must be fate, so I've already agreed to go to the Yun family for a while. However, when I'm more familiar with Demon Imperial City and know where Brother Under Heaven lives, I will definitely go pay a visit. Number 1 Under Heaven glanced at Yun Xiao, before gradually nodding. Since that's the case, I shall not ask any more. That Yun brat knows where my Under Heaven family lives. If you encounter any problems that are difficult to handle, you can come find me at any time. Although my Under Heaven family is not huge within Demon Imperial City, and perhaps even the entire illusory demon realm, we still have some reputation. Yunche raised his hand. Since that's the case, I shall thank Brother Under. Yunche's words were suddenly cut off as he stared forwards, stunned for a moment. Illusory Demon Realm. Illusory Demon Realm. Episode 85 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.